Hello, everybody. This is Colin, and we are back with episode number 2 of my podcast. And since we have, or I have recorded the first episode, I have come to an agreement in my mind on the name of this podcast, and we are going to call this the Aligned Lifestyle Podcast. So, moving forward, that is the name of this podcast. How I came up with this name and thinking of how I was going to be presenting information and the things that I was going to be covering. And what was this umbrella that was going to cover it all was living an aligned lifestyle or having a lifestyle that's aligned with the person that you want to be. It's aligned with your identity. So the things that I will be covering in this podcast are going to be centered around aligning your lifestyle with who you are and who you want to be in your life and the identity that you want to live out. So that's how we came up with the name, and that's what we're going to be moving forward with. I'm super excited about it. I think I said it about 100 times to Julia, my wife. If you guys don't know my wife, her name is Julia. I think I said it to her 100 times because I was so excited about the name. So we are going to be moving forward with that. Our first episode was an introductory episode, but we talked about turning our thoughts into action. Today, we are going to be focusing on progress over perfection. And kind of a sub idea is getting 1% better every day. As of late, I started reading the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. I previously listened to it, listened to the audio version. I just got the book and have been diving into that. And it is remarkable how simple and straightforward this book is. But the very beginning focuses on the idea of getting better 1% every day and how that compounds. So I'm going to pull a quote directly from him. And the quote says, "Improving by 1% isn't particularly notable. Sometimes it isn't even noticeable, but it can be far more meaningful, especially in the long run." Take a second and digest that. Let me say it again for you. Improving by 1% isn't particularly notable. Sometimes it isn't even noticeable, but it can be far more meaningful, especially in the long run. So when I heard this quote or I read this quote, um, it immediately made me think of the idea of progress over perfection. I touched on that in the last podcast when we were talking about turning our thoughts into action, especially the concept of messy action. Is myself in particular can fall victim to the idea that it needs to be perfect and the situation needs to be perfect, the parameters need to be perfect before we get started, but you just need to start and you need to take that first step. And sometimes you don't know what that first step is, but you got to try something out, and it's trial and error that will get the ball moving. So progress over perfection is just about getting started. And oftentimes, when we look back at this quote that I just shared, it finishes by saying, especially in the long run, is it can be debilitating when we're not noticing change right away, and especially dramatic change, something that we all crave and want. And progress isn't always this sexy thing, like especially when you're taking action and messy action, like you're doing very mundane, very simple things. And another concept from the book that I think encompasses this really well, when I say from the book, from Atomic Habits, is falling in love with boredom. Like success is about doing simple things and doing them well, virtuosity, doing the common uncommonly well. And that takes time, that takes repetition, that takes practice, and it also takes failing and it takes mistakes. It's a matter of taking those mistakes and learning from them, having the growth mindset that there's a silver lining in everything that you do. And sometimes you just got to look a little bit deeper to find what that silver lining is and to really see what it is that you can extract from a situation. Um, and that mindset is so important to growth and progress and to getting that 1% better every day. And to give you a sense of framework here, and this is actually pulled from the book Atomic Habits, getting better 1% every day for 1 year will result in you being nearly 37 times better than you were. Now, on the opposite end, if you were to get 1% worse each day for a year, you're nearly back down to zero. Sometimes that is even below where you started. And getting worse happens because of inaction, because of staying in the same spot. And actually, let me retract that. It's not even staying in the same spot because you're getting worse. Like you're continuing to do the things that are moving you further away from where you want to be. So I also want to retract that statement of inaction. It's not always inaction. Sometimes it's action that is detracting you away from where you want to be. And it's important to focus on the small, minute details. And it's about being patient. It's about focusing on the long term. So, a big concept that comes into play here is that it's more important to focus on your systems than your goals. And I'm going to pull another quote from the book because there's so many things that this book points out that are just so simple but so astounding. And the quote goes like this: You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So, what that means is that you can have this grandiose goal. You can have this goal of, I'm going to lose 50 pounds this year. And that's a great goal. It's very ambitious. If you achieve that goal, you achieve something phenomenal. But you can have that goal, but if you don't have the systems in place, and when I say systems, that means your habits and behaviors, then you're going to fall to the level of those systems, which for most people, and more times than not, are non existent. You're just kind of aimlessly going forward. And I'm definitely one of those people that falls victim to it too. And if you don't have a system in place, you're not going to get 1% better every single day. And sometimes you're going to realize in the midst of it setting a goal and on the road to achieving it that that's not the actual goal that you want to achieve. Or you're going to realize, like, okay, 50 pounds in 1 year, that was a great thought. But it's much more realistic for me to think about, let's get 20 pounds off this year. And that may be because of the nature of your lifestyle. The way that you want to live your life is not in alignment with shedding 50 pounds in 1 year. Or shedding 50 pounds in 1 year is not in alignment with the way that you want to carry that out. And you're going to learn that along the way. But a lot of times, people are so fixated on their goals, the specificity of their goals, that if they don't attain it, they failed. But in the midst of that process, there was progress made. Maybe they didn't lose 50, but they lost 20. But that 20 in their mind is not relevant because it wasn't 50. And that's the idea of that right there is focusing on perfection over progress. Where if you had the progress over perfection mindset, that 20 is progress. You are closer to your goal than you were when you started. And that's phenomenal. So, having this idea of progress over perfection is the key to success because focusing on progress is getting 1% better every day. And getting 1% better every day may not be the most notable or noticeable thing, going back to our original quote, but if you continually get better, it's going to compound. It's going to catch some momentum and you're going to keep the ball rolling, but you have to notice it. And if you keep noticing it and you notice it, but there's not the change that you're exactly looking for, be patient because there's a certain threshold that you're going to get through at some point in time. And that's what you're chasing after. Like when you hit that threshold, that's when you're going to be like, dang, that was so worth it. And you just have to be patient to get there. Again, the stuff that gets you there, your systems, your habits, your behavior, they're going to be boring. They're going to be simple. That's not sexy. But what is sexy is the result. And that's what you're chasing. So I encourage you guys to adopt this mindset of progress over perfection and focus on how you can get 1% better every day. Remember, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Take that Work with it today and get yourself moving towards the progress that you are looking for. Again, if you're not sure, if you know what your goal is, reverse engineer from there and figure out what that first step is that you're going to take. You can do it, and I encourage you and I support you in that process. So I'm going to finish up with that, and I appreciate you guys listening to the second episode. Again, I'm super excited about this, the Aligned Lifestyle Podcast, episode number 2. I'll talk to you guys later.